Ancient spirits have awakened across the Texas frontier, feeding on hatred between races and threatening to consume everything in darkness. Comanche warrior Ayanna discovers a dying black woman during his vision quest. Unaware she carries the royal bloodline prophesied to either save his people or destroy them both. Ayanna faces an impossible choice between tribal duty and protecting this mysterious stranger who may be his spiritual destiny. Blue light pulsed from Zara's trembling hands. The glow spread across Ayanna's torn chest like water finding cracks in drought-hardened earth. Around them lay 3 wolves, their red eyes still burning with unnatural fire. Strange symbols carved into their fur caught the moonlight. The marks meant something. Something old. Zara's tears fell onto wounds that should have killed him hours ago. Her voice broke the canyon silence. Don't leave me. Not when I finally understand what we are. The light flickered, faded. His breathing grew shallow. 3 months earlier, dust devils danced across the Texas plains. Ayanna rode alone, following the ancient path his grandfather had walked. The vision quest called to warriors seeking their spiritual purpose. At 23, he had everything except the one thing that mattered: connection to the spirits that guided his people. His horse's ears pricked forward. Something moved near the overturned wagon ahead. Buzzards circled overhead, patient as death itself. The woman lay crumpled beside splintered wood and scattered belongings. Her fine blue dress spoke of wealth. The ritual scars covering her dark arms spoke of something else entirely. Blood had dried on her forehead. Her breathing came in short gasps. She would die here if he rode away. Ayanna dismounted, lifted her into his arms. Her weight surprised him, muscle beneath the delicate fabric. A warrior's body disguised as a lady's. The hidden canyon had sheltered his family for generations. Sacred springs bubbled from limestone walls. Ancient pictographs covered the rocks like frozen prayers. He laid her on soft grass beside the water, built a small fire, cleaned her wounds with careful hands. She woke 3 days later. Dark eyes studied his face with sharp intelligence. No fear, no gratitude, just assessment, like a hawk measuring distances before flight. Water, she whispered. He brought her cool spring water in a gourd cup. She drank slowly, watching him over the rim. When she finished, she spoke again. You are Comanche. Her English carried traces of something else, something that sounded like music from distant shores. Yes. Why did you save me? The question hung between them like smoke from the dying fire. He had no answer that made sense, even to himself. The spirits told me to. She smiled then. The first warmth he had seen from her. My grandmother would say the same thing. Days passed in careful silence. She grew stronger. He brought her food, fresh water, healing herbs his mother had taught him to recognize. She never asked his name. He never offered it. But she watched him, studied his movements like she was learning a new language. On the 7th day, hoofbeats echoed off canyon walls. 3 riders approached. Ayanna recognized them before they reached the hidden entrance. His betrothed had arrived early. Kestrel sat her horse like she owned the wind itself, beautiful in the way of carved bone and polished silver, sharp edges that caught light and cut unwary fingers. 2 warriors flanked her, brothers from her northern tribe, sent to ensure the marriage alliance proceeded as planned. Kestrel's gaze found Zara immediately, measured her like a threat to be eliminated. Who is this woman? A survivor. I found her dying. Bring her to me. It was not a request. Kestrel had never learned to ask for anything. Her father's wealth had bought her the right to demand. Zara rose slowly, walked toward the riders with fluid grace that spoke of royal training. Even in her torn dress, she carried herself like nobility. Kestrel studied the ritual scars on Zara's arms. Her expression hardened. These markings, they are witch signs. They are healing scars, Zara said quietly, from my grandmother's ceremonies. Dark magic, Kestrel's voice cut like winter wind. She will bring curse upon your people. One of her brothers shifted in his saddle. His hand moved toward his knife. She leaves with us, Kestrel continued. Tonight. No. The word escaped Ayanna before thought could stop it. 3 pairs of eyes fixed on him. Kestrel's burned hottest. You defy me? For this cursed woman? She is under my protection. Your protection? Kestrel laughed without humor. You are promised. To me. Your loyalty belongs to our alliance. My loyalty belongs to what is right. Silence stretched between them like a bowstring drawn too tight. The brothers' hands rested on their weapons now. Ready? Kestrel studied Ayanna's face for a long moment. Then she smiled. Cold as winter stars. We shall see what your father says about this righteousness. She wheeled her horse around. The brothers followed. Their hoofbeats faded into distance, carrying with them the certainty of coming trouble. Zara had not moved during the confrontation. When the riders disappeared, she spoke without turning around. You should have let them take me. No. They will return with warriors. Your father will demand my surrender. Then we will face that when it comes. She turned to look at him then. Something had changed in her expression. A wall had fallen, revealing depths he had not suspected. Why? She asked. Why risk everything for someone you barely know? The question he had been avoiding since the moment he found her. The answer came from a place deeper than thought. Because the spirits sing when you are near. Her breath caught. For a moment neither spoke. Then small things began to happen around them. Things that should have been impossible. Wilted flowers, near the spring, straightened, lifted their faces toward the sun. A injured hawk that had been dying in the rock spread its wings and took flight. The air itself seemed to shimmer with invisible energy. Zara looked at her hands as if seeing them for the first time. My grandmother said this would happen, she whispered, when I found the one the spirits had chosen. 3 days later, war. Chief Ayanna's father arrived with 10 mounted warriors. His weathered face showed no emotion as he surveyed the hidden canyon. Bring the woman to me. The bounty hunters had been asking questions in every settlement. $500 for the return of stolen property, money that could buy weapons, ammunition, medicine for the tribe's children. Father, she is not what they claim. She is what we need her to be, my son. The survival of our people comes before the fate of one woman. The warriors moved to surround Zara. She stood calmly, hands at her sides. No resistance. No plea for mercy. But Ayanna stepped between them and her. I will not allow this. His father's eyes hardened. In them, Ayanna saw the death of childhood. The end of unconditional love. Then you are no son of mine. The words fell like stones into still water. Ripples spread outward, changing everything they touched. So be it. Ayanna took Zara's hand, led her deeper into the canyon toward the ancient caves where his ancestors had hidden during times of war. Behind them, his father's voice carried on the wind. When you remember what you owe your people, you will find us. But Ayanna did not look back. For the first time in his life, he walked toward something instead of away from it. The spirits sang louder now, and in the distance, something else had begun to stir, something that had been waiting for this moment. Something that fed on the hatred between peoples. Something that was finally strong enough to wake. The deeper caves smelled of stone and time. Ayanna led Zara through passages his grandfather had shown him as a boy. Emergency routes, places to hide when the world above turned hostile. Water trickled down limestone walls. Their footsteps echoed like whispered secrets. How long can we stay here? Zara asked. As long as we need to. But they both knew that was a lie. His father would not wait forever. The bounty hunters would not stop searching. Ayanna gathered dry wood while Zara explored the cave paintings. Ancient hands had left their stories here. Hunts, ceremonies, warnings about things that walked in darkness. She traced one symbol with her finger. A spiral within a spiral. Her breath caught. I know this mark. It means eternal cycle. Life returning to life. My grandmother carved the same symbol on my shoulder. She touched the raised scar through her dress. She said it would protect me when the old powers woke. The fire crackled between them. In its light, she looked younger, more vulnerable. But her eyes held depths that spoke of suffering survived. Tell me about your grandmother. Zara stared into the flames. When she spoke, her voice carried the rhythm of distant drums. She was Iya Ugba, the great mother of our kingdom, keeper of the old ways. When the ship raiders came, she fought them with lightning and storm winds. Ship raiders. Men who steal people, sell them like cattle across the great water. Her hands clenched in her lap. They killed her when she would not stop the weather magic. Ayana felt the weight of her loss. It sat between them like a stone thrown into still water. Before she died, she whispered the prophecy. Find the warrior with wolf eyes in the sunset land. Our bloodlines would restore what was broken. Wolf eyes. Zara looked up from the fire, met his gaze directly. Yellow gold. Like yours. The silence stretched. In it, something shifted. A recognition that went deeper than words. You have been watching me, he said, learning you, the way you move, how you listen to things others cannot hear. She paused. You speak to the spirits, but they do not answer. The truth stung because it was accurate. His entire vision quest had been failure disguised as searching. They answered when I found you. No. Her voice was gentle but certain. They answered when we found each other. 3 days passed in careful discovery. Ayana taught her to move silently through brush, to read weather signs and cloud formations, to find water by following bird flight patterns. She showed him how to listen beneath the surface of things, how stillness could be its own form of power, how healing came from understanding rather than fighting. Small miracles happened around her. A sick rabbit brought its young to her for blessing. Ravens perched on her shoulders without fear. Plants grew taller where she walked. My people would call you blessed, he said one morning. Your people would call me cursed. Some would. Others would recognize the gift. She touched the scars on her arms. Each one told a story he was beginning to understand. These marks are not from slavery, she said finally. They are from initiation, royal ceremonies. I am Princess Aduni of the Yoruba people. The confession hung between them like bridge, spanning impossible distance. Princess? My father ruled 300 villages. My grandmother was spiritual mother to them all. She met his eyes. The ship raiders did not steal a slave. They stole the heir to a kingdom. Understanding dawned, slow and bright. Her bearing, her fearlessness, the way she commanded respect without demanding it. Why tell me now? Because you have given up everything to protect someone you thought was nothing. You deserve to know what you are protecting. That night, strange sounds drifted through the canyon, animals crying out in distress, horses screaming in distant pastures. Ayana climbed to the cave mouth, looked out over moonlit landscape. 3 miles away, the Hendricks Ranch burned. Not normal fire. Green flames that moved against the wind. That left the ground black and sterile behind them. Something is wrong out there, he said. Zara joined him at the cave entrance. Her face went pale in the moonlight. It has begun. What has begun? The awakening my grandmother warned about. When spiritual balance breaks, old hungers stir. Thunder rolled across clear skies. Lightning struck upward from the earth toward the stars. We need to go back, she said. Back where? To your people. They will need us soon. But when they reached the main camp the next morning, they found chaos. Half the horses dead or missing. Warriors returning from routine hunts with tales of shadows that moved independently of any body. Kestrel stood at the center of the confusion, directing search parties with military precision. When she saw Ayana and Zara approaching, Her expression hardened to flint. You return at last, just in time to witness the curse your woman has brought upon us. What curse? Ask the families whose livestock have been drained of blood. Ask the hunters who see their dead fathers beckoning from empty meadows. War Chief approached with heavy steps. His face showed the weight of sleepless nights. My son, your timing is unfortunate. Father, what has happened? Things that should not be. Cattle found unmarked but empty of life. Children wake screaming from dreams of burning eyes. The medicine man says the spirits are angry. Old Nalnish emerged from his lodge. The medicine man's weathered hands shook as he pointed at Zara. She has disturbed the balance, brought attention from things that should sleep. You are wrong, Zara said quietly. I did not wake them, but I may be the only one who can send them back to sleep. Nalnish studied her for a long moment. His ancient eyes saw deeper than most. You carry old power, African spirit magic. Yes. And you? He turned to Ayana. Carry the bloodline of earth speakers. Your great-grandmother could make mountains listen. What does this mean? War Chief demanded. It means, Nalnish said, slowly, that prophecy has found us whether we wanted it or not. The old man gestured for them to follow him into his lodge. Sacred smoke curled from the center fire, bones and stones arranged in patterns that spoke of divination. Sit, both of you. They knelt beside the fire. Nalnish threw herbs into the flames. The smoke changed color, became thick and sweet. Show me your scars, daughter. Zara rolled back her sleeves. The ritual markings seemed to glow in the firelight. And you, son? Give me your hands. Ayana extended his palms. Nalnish studied the lines there like a map to hidden countries. The spirits have been whispering of this day for generations, when the world grew too full of hatred, when people forgot they were connected by more than blood. The smoke swirled between them. In it, shapes formed and dissolved. Creatures with burning eyes. Darkness that fed on human anger. The old ones have woken. They grow strong on the hatred between your peoples, between all peoples who think themselves separate. How do we stop them? Ayana asked. Nalnish was quiet for a long time. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of terrible knowledge. There is a way, a binding ritual that joins earth magic with spirit magic, but the cost is high. What cost? One of the two bloodlines must be offered completely, life force given to seal the darkness forever. The lodge fell silent except for the crackling fire. In the smoke, the creatures stirred, waited. Outside, a horse screamed, then another. The sound of hoofbeats approaching fast. War Chief burst through the lodge entrance. Cavalry soldiers, 2 miles out and riding hard. Ayana's stomach dropped. The bounty hunters had finally brought military support. How many? He asked. 50 mounted, led by an officer who carries a personal flag. Nalnish threw more herbs on the fire. The smoke turned black. The darkness feeds on all conflict. It has been whispering to angry hearts, pushing them toward violence. Through the lodge walls came the sound of weapons being readied, warriors preparing for a fight they could not win. We have to try the binding ritual, Zara said. The moon is not right. The spiritual energy is not aligned. Nalnish shook his head. We would need the blood moon, when the barrier between worlds grows thin. When is the next blood moon? 3 days. Outside, a bugle call echoed across the plains. The cavalry had arrived. War Chief looked between his son and the woman who had brought both salvation and destruction to his people. We surrender her now, or we all die fighting. Ayana stood slowly. Through the lodge entrance, he could see soldiers forming ranks. Sunlight glinted off rifle barrels and saber blades. At their head rode an officer whose uniform bore the insignia of personal vendetta. This was not military business. This was revenge. 3 days, Ayana said quietly. What? Tell them we need 3 days to consider terms, to prepare for surrender. War Chief's eyes narrowed. What are you planning? To give the blood moon time to rise. Outside, the officer's voice carried across the distance, cold and implacable. I am Colonel Morrison. You have something that belongs to me. Send out the woman, and this ends without bloodshed. War Chief looked at his son, at the woman who might save them all or destroy them completely, at the creatures that stirred in the smoke between worlds. 3 days, he called back. The colonel's laughter was sharp as breaking glass. 3 days, then, but on the 4th morning I take what is mine. Colonel Morrison sat his horse like judgment itself. 50 cavalry soldiers formed ranks behind him, their weapons gleaming in afternoon light. But his eyes held something beyond military duty, personal hatred, the kind that burned cold and patient. 3 days, he called across the distance. Then I collect what was stolen from my family. War Chief stood at the edge of camp, weighing impossible choices. Surrender one woman and watch her hang, or fight overwhelming odds and see his people slaughtered. Behind him, warriors checked their weapons with quiet efficiency. Wives gathered children into the strongest lodges. Elders began the death songs they had hoped never to sing. Your family? War Chief called back. She killed my brother, left him bleeding in Kansas dirt. Morrison's voice carried across the plains like winter wind. Justice has been long delayed. Zara stood beside Ayanna, her face carved from stone. No denial, no defense. Just acceptance of what was coming. Did you? Ayanna asked quietly. He tried to force himself on me. I fought back. Her voice held no apology. He fell wrong when I pushed him away. The truth settled between them like dust after a landslide. Morrison was not here for military duty or legal justice. He was here for revenge against a woman who had defended herself. The colonel speaks of stolen property, War Chief observed. I was never property. I was cargo being transported to a man who bought the right to own me. Zara's hands remained steady at her sides. When the raiders attacked our wagon train, I saw my chance to run. Morrison had been tracking her for months, following rumors and bounty notices across half the territory. His brother's death had twisted grief into something darker. He will not negotiate, Ayanna said. No. Men like him do not bend. They break others or they break themselves. That night, the supernatural attacks intensified. 3 horses found dead without wounds. A warrior's rifle dissolved to rust in his hands. Children reported seeing relatives who had been dead for years standing at the edge of firelight. Nalnish emerged from his ritual lodge, his ancient face grim. The entities grow bold. They feed on the anger between the soldiers and our people, on the colonel's hatred, on our fear. He gestured toward Morrison's camp where sentries paced nervous circles around flickering fires. Even they see the shadows moving, but they blame us for what stalks them. Ayanna found Zara sitting beside the sacred spring. Moonlight turned the water to liquid silver. She stared into its depths like they held answers to questions she had not yet learned to ask. You know about the binding ritual's cost, he said. Yes. Nalnish told you? My grandmother did. In the vision that came when I first touched your hand. She looked up at him. One life given freely to seal the darkness forever. They sat in silence, listening to water trickle over stone. Around them, the night held its breath. I should be the one, she said finally. No. I brought this curse here. My presence woke the old things. Our presence. Together. He knelt beside her. The prophecy requires both bloodlines, earth magic and spirit magic joined. One of us dies, Ayanna. The other lives with that weight forever. Then we make that choice when the blood moon rises. Not before. On the second day, Kestrel approached their hiding place in the sacred canyon. She came alone, walking her horse carefully down the narrow trail. Her face showed strain. Sleepless nights and hard decisions had worn her beauty to sharp edges. "I bring word from the camp," she said. "What word?" "3 more warriors have disappeared. The elders speak of surrender before we lose more." Ayana studied his former betrothed. Something had changed in her manner. The arrogance had been replaced by something harder to define. "You have news from the soldiers as well," Zara observed. Kestrel's composure cracked slightly. "How did you know?" "Your horse has been ridden hard in 2 directions, and you carry the smell of their tobacco." For a moment, Kestrel's mask fell completely. Underneath was a woman terrified for her survival in a world that offered few choices to her kind. "I met with Morrison yesterday. Offered to help locate you in exchange for safe passage north." The admission hung between them like smoke from a dying fire. Betrayal made manifest. "But you did not tell him where we are," Ayana said. "No." Kestrel's voice was barely a whisper. "Because his hatred is poisoning everything it touches. Even my own people fear him now." She dismounted, approached them on foot. Her movements held the careful precision of someone walking on cracking ice. The colonel sees enemies everywhere. His own soldiers watch him with worried eyes. Yesterday he struck down a sergeant who questioned his orders. "The entities feed on his anger," Zara said. "Use it to spread their influence. Then we are all doomed. His rage has no bottom." Nalnish had warned them about this, how the old powers whispered to susceptible minds, how they turned natural emotions into weapons against the living. "There is still the blood moon," Ayana said. "1 day away." Kestrel looked between them. "Do you truly believe this ritual can stop what has been unleashed?" "We have to try." That evening, supernatural manifestations erupted across both camps. Soldiers reported seeing Confederate dead rising from unmarked graves. Warriors found their weapons turning to sand in their hands. Morrison's voice carried across the darkness, shouting orders to men who could barely hold their ground against things that should not exist. Form ranks, maintain discipline. But discipline meant nothing against creatures that fed on fear itself. In the Comanche camp, families huddled together while shadows moved independently of their bodies. Children cried out in their sleep, speaking names of people who had never lived. Nalnish performed cleansing rituals until his voice grew hoarse. The sacred smoke provided small circles of protection, but the darkness pressed closer with each passing hour. "Tomorrow night," he told Ayana and Zara, "the blood moon rises. If we do not attempt the binding then, we may not survive long enough for another chance." They spent the final day in preparation, learning the ritual words that had been passed down through generations of medicine keepers, understanding the spiritual forces they would attempt to channel. "The earth magic draws power from connection," Nalnish explained, "from roots that run deep and stones that remember ancient songs." "And spirit magic?" Zara asked. "From the bonds between all living things. From love that transcends death itself." As sunset approached, both camps prepared for what was coming. Morrison's soldiers cleaned weapons that might prove useless against supernatural enemies. Comanche warriors painted their faces for a battle that could not be won with arrows and courage alone. But in the sacred canyon, 2 people made peace with the choice that awaited them. "If I am the one who must be given," Ayana said, "know that it is freely offered." "And if I am chosen," Zara replied, "know that I go willingly to protect what we have found together." The blood moon began to rise, casting everything in crimson light. In that red glow, shadows took on substance. Ancient hungers stirred. And from Morrison's camp came the sound of men screaming at things their weapons could not touch. The time for choosing had arrived. In the distance, creatures of shadow and flame emerged from the spaces between worlds. Their red eyes burned with hatred older than human memory. They had fed on conflict between peoples for countless generations. Now they were strong enough to devour everything. The ritual circle waited. The binding words had been spoken in preparation. One life would be the price of sealing them away forever. Ayana and Zara joined hands as the blood moon reached its peak. Around them, two worlds collided in a symphony of supernatural war. The blood moon hung like a wound in the sky. Its crimson light turned everything to shades of violence and old pain. In the sacred canyon, creatures emerged from shadows that had grown too deep. Their forms shifted between wolf and man and something altogether other. Red eyes burned with hunger that had waited centuries to feed. Ayana and Zara stood within the ritual circle Nalnish had carved into stone. Ancient. Symbols spiraled outward from their joined hands. Words in languages older than memory echoed off canyon walls. Around them, the battle had begun. Morrison's soldiers fired at things that laughed at bullets. Their screams carried across the night as weapons dissolved in their hands. Horses reared and fled, leaving men to face horrors on foot. The colonel himself stood in the center of chaos, his saber raised against creatures that flowed like smoke between the worlds. His hatred had called them. Now they turned that same darkness back upon him. "This is our doing," one shadow whispered in his ear. "Your rage gave us form. Your need for revenge gave us purpose." Morrison swung his blade through empty air. The creature's laughter followed him as he stumbled backward. In the Comanche camp, warriors fought with arrows that passed harmlessly through supernatural flesh. Children huddled in lodges while their mothers sang protection songs that barely held the darkness at bay. But in the canyon, power began to build. Zara spoke words her grandmother had whispered in dreams. African spirit magic flowed through her voice like water finding its course. The ritual scars on her arms glowed with blue light that pushed against the red shadows. Ayana called to earth spirits in the language of his ancestors. The stone beneath their feet responded. The ancient pictographs carved into canyon walls began to pulse with golden energy. Two bloodlines, two forms of power, joining for the first time in countless generations. The creatures felt it. Their burning eyes turned toward the canyon as one. "The binding," they hissed in unison. "They attempt the old magic." Shadows poured down canyon walls like black water. They came from every direction, converging on the ritual circle with desperate hunger. Kestrel appeared at the canyon's edge. She had ridden hard from the burning camps, her horse lathered with sweat and fear. "The soldiers are broken," she called. "Morrison has lost his mind. He speaks to things that are not there." "Can you hold them back?" Ayana asked without breaking the ritual rhythm. Kestrel drew her rifle, aimed at the nearest shadow creature. Her hands shook, but her voice held steady. "I will try." She fired. The bullet passed through the creature, but the sound seemed to startle it, gave it pause. They fear loud noises, she realized. Iron and noise disrupts their form. More shots echoed from the canyon entrance. War Chief had arrived with his remaining warriors. They formed a defensive line across the narrow opening, firing steadily at anything that moved. The creatures shrieked but pressed forward. Each gunshot bought seconds, nothing more. In the ritual circle, the binding reached its crucial moment. "One life freely given," Nalnish chanted from beyond the fighting. One spirit offered to seal the breach between worlds. Ayana felt the pull of the magic. It wanted his life force, called to the earth magic in his blood. Zara felt it too. The spirit power demanded sacrifice. A willing soul to anchor the binding forever. They looked at each other across the growing light. Both understood. Both made the same choice. "No," Ayana said firmly. "I choose." "No," Zara replied. "The choice is mine." The ritual hesitated, wavered between two equal offerings. Around them, the creatures pressed closer. Warriors fell back step by step. Ammunition ran low. "Choose. Quickly," War Chief shouted over the sound of supernatural screaming. "We cannot hold them much longer." That was when the truth emerged from shadow and moonlight. The largest creature stepped into the ritual circle. Its form solidified as it spoke, revealing features that had once been human. "You understand nothing," it said with Morrison's voice. but the eyes were red fire and ancient hunger. We are not invaders. We are what your hatred creates, what your division feeds. The colonel stood before them, but no longer himself. The entity had claimed his body as its vessel. Every act of prejudice, every moment of tribal warfare, every thought that made you see others as less than human. The creature smiled with Morrison's mouth. We grew stronger with each one. It gestured toward the fighting around them. Comanche and cavalry soldiers now fought side by side against the common threat, their ancient enmity forgotten in the face of something worse. Too late, it continued. We have fed too long, grown too strong. Even your binding ritual cannot unmake what generations of hatred have built. But Zara stepped forward. Her voice cut through supernatural mockery like heated steel. You are wrong. The creature turned its burning eyes toward her. How so, little princess? Hatred did not create you. Fear did. Fear of the other. Fear of difference. Fear of what we do not understand. She reached out to touch Morrison's possessed face. The creature recoiled but could not escape the ritual circle. And love unmakes fear. Her hand made contact. Blue light flowed between them. The entity shrieked as memories flooded through the connection. Morrison's true self beneath the possession. A man twisted by grief for his brother. A soldier who had forgotten why he first chose to serve. You turned his love into hatred, Zara said. But the love remains underneath. The creature began to dissolve. Morrison's true consciousness surfaced. Confusion replacing supernatural, malice. What have I done? He whispered. Around the canyon, other possessed soldiers and warriors began to shake off the entity's influence. The creature's forms wavered as their anchor points weakened. But the binding still required sacrifice. Ayana understood first. Not one life. Both lives. Given together to create something neither could achieve alone. Are you ready? He asked. Zara nodded. Together. They joined hands in the center of the circle, began to transfer their combined life force into the binding spell. Blue and golden light spiraled upward. The breach between worlds began to seal. No! Kestrel screamed from the canyon entrance. She had seen what they intended. There must be another way. But there was no other way. The ritual demanded everything. As their spirits merged and began to fade, something unexpected happened. The love between them, freely given without reservation, created new life instead of ending it. The binding transformed from death magic into birth magic. Zara felt the change first, a flutter in her womb where their child had begun to grow. The baby carried both bloodlines, both forms of power, enough spiritual energy to maintain the binding without requiring their deaths. The entities shrieked as they were pulled back into shadow. The breach sealed itself with golden and blue light that would burn for generations. Dawn broke over the canyon. The blood moon faded into ordinary sky. Morrison knelt in the center of the now quiet ritual circle, his true self restored. Around him, soldiers and warriors looked at each other with new understanding. The creatures were gone. The supernatural threat ended. But Ayana collapsed as the sun touched the canyon walls. Zara caught him as he fell. The ritual had taken most of his life force, even though it had not claimed his death. He would live, but barely. The earth magic would sustain him just long enough to see what they had created together. She placed his hand on her stomach where their child grew, the baby that would carry both bloodlines, the living seal that would guard against the darkness forever. We did it, she whispered. Ayana smiled, closed his eyes. His spirit flowed into hers completely, becoming part of the new life they had made. Around them, two peoples who had been enemies began the work of becoming something else. Something better. Kestrel knelt beside Zara as she held Ayana's still form. No jealousy remained, only shared grief for a good man's sacrifice. What will you do now? She asked. Zara looked up at the morning sky, felt the child move within her, carried the weight of Ayana's spirit and her own responsibility to two nations who needed healing. Raise the bridge between worlds. She placed her hand on her stomach where new life stirred. Their child, who would carry both bloodlines and the power to guard against ancient darkness. She whispered his name to the morning stars, knowing that in saving two peoples, they had lost each other forever. And that is all to the story for now. Please let me know where you are tuning in from. Perhaps we will create a story there. Consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel, and if you enjoy our content, click this video on your screen. I promise you it's worth watching. See you tomorrow.